messing around. Injection, fellas. Ooh.
Is that the theme song? I don't.
Yeah, I just do a romantic ottoman humping theme song.
We could do a refresh on the theme song. I'm down.
That's not the theme song.
Yeah.
That's actually not the theme song because this show is not erotic at all.
There's not. Come on. Everything you do is erotic, Lamorne.
This is true.
Yes,
Thank you.
true.
Yes, that is true.
That is factual. I agree. I
Can't help yourself.
What are we doing here if it's not erotic?
Folks, if you're just tuning in and you're wondering who the hell that person is speaking, it is none other than the most beloved TV character of all time, Mr. Max Greenfield.
Woo, woo.
Max, the squinty eyes works. It works, my friend.
I should say, considering what your title is, Lamorne, for yourself on these record sessions, we put it out, Max, that you were coming on the podcast and asked for questions. And I would say half of the questions were, how did Max not win an Emmy for Schmidt? Half the fan questions were that one singular question.
Well, yes. It feels good to be nominated. And and as Lamorne can attest to, winning an Emmy is kind of like a loser move. Because then what do you do from then? You're like, oh, yeah, I won. Good for you. You got an award for acting. Congratulations. It's cool to just be like in the group and you're like, I didn't win. And you're like, that's kind of cooler. Right? I think so. Although honestly, it did not feel great when I lost. But do
you remember what you told me? I saw you at the night before party.
I do remember because I was like, man, listen, I'm telling you, just know that if it doesn't go your way, there's about 30 seconds where you can't breathe and you go, this feels humiliating. But obviously you didn't experience that.
Well, you were so prepared to experience it that the win took you so off guard.
I listened. I took that to heart. I knew I wasn't going to win, but I was thinking to myself, just work on your loser face. Don't be a piece of shit in this moment, Lamorne, and like be sad and mad about it and pout. Just work on your smile and all that. And I was gonna do a bit. Actually, I'm not sure if I told you this, Max. I was gonna do a bit.
Did you not do one?
No, I was like, well, if I lose,
no, he was so sure he was gonna lose. He had something prepared. Yeah, he had something prepared. That's what he was waiting to do the thing.
I was going to curse out the camera. Like, and like grab it and stuff. I was prepared to do that. I was like, Lamorne, you may never get nominated again.
I would have liked for you to have grabbed the camera, then not knowing that was going to happen. Them sort of like knocking into whoever was sitting in front of you and injuring someone like Diane Wiest or Kathy Bates or something.
Kathy Bates was right behind me.
Lamorne sent Diane Wiest to the hospital.
Welcome, Max. Please make yourself at home. We want to dive into this episode. So in this episode, Nick and Jess break up but decide not to tell anyone in fear that they might ruin Winston's day after he learns he got accepted into the police academy. Meanwhile, Schmidt decides to help Cece study for her GED because she's stupid. But after everyone secretly finds out about the breakup, minus Winston, that's all they can focus on. This leads to a honey roast for the ages. We'll be right back. And we are back. Max, this director, first of all, written by Berkeley Johnson and Kim Rosenstock,
the best.
Two of the best writers. The director, though, Steven Shishida. We're going to go Shishida.
All right.
Directed a hell of an episode.
Nailed it.
Nailed it, 100%. We start this episode off. Nick wakes up with a note on his hand that reads, "You and Jess broke up."
Yeah, full Memento style.
That's right. Bed got burned. It was not a dream. Writing left-handed is hard. All those things. And there is a makeshift bed on the floor where Jess slept. Nick goes to grab some clothes out of the closet, only to get scared by Jess, who was in the closet changing her clothes. Are you like me, Max? When I watch this show back, well, you probably don't watch it back, but when I watch it back, just because we do this recap, I get so confused with the breakups and the get back togethers. I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
You could have stopped with, "I get so confused."
I'm always like, do you ever, in real time, were you always like, are we breaking up again? Because the same happens with Schmidt and Cece.
It was constant. The on again, off again. I mean, but that's the show, right?
I never think about it.
You show up, you do what you're told.
Yeah. Not, in real time, I'm the exact same way. I'm just like, yeah, they wrote it. I'm going to do it. I feel like they'll piece it together themselves. But now that we're doing this rewatch.
I've talked about this a couple of times with people. People will ask me what's the difference between The Neighborhood and New Girl. And The Neighborhood, because it's a multicam, and it's like, you look back at a show like Seinfeld, which is a show that I love, which is the same style of show. And you can look back and you go, oh, this was the Soup Nazi episode, or this was this, and even Friends, Friends like specifically was called like the one with the, or whatever it was. And you really can isolate episodes. And with New Girl, because the shooting of that show was so wild and spread out, and one episode mixed into the next episode, and we were supposed to finish on Friday, went into like the following Wednesday, and storylines were ongoing and ending and coming back up again. It all felt like every season just felt like one long episode that never ended. You never felt like you were, where you would shoot the button of an episode or the tag of an episode and go, oh, we finished the episode, because you were then shooting something right after it. And you never had any sort of idea of what a storyline was within an episode. It just felt like one long, insane, like epic movie.
I agree.
That didn't necessarily have any ending. And so when you talk about like storylines, I was like, oh man, I don't know where I lost. You lose the plot after some point, and you just are doing bits.
Yeah, there was two episodes prior on this podcast. There's this guy named Buster who comes into the bar. And
do you remember this episode? It's called Fired Up, where Cece, a young man, comes into the bar. He's 20, and they named him Buster after Brett's son. And she like wants to date him, even though he's like 10 years younger and can't even legally be in a bar.
13 years.
Was he cute though?
Hot. It's Australian from Perth. And when I was rewatching it, I went, wait, Schmidt and Cece broke up? Wait, hold on, where are we?
It's also like cheering her on to date the child.
Yeah. Just so
that one I remember. I was like, what are we doing? What's happening in this episode? That was a weird one to watch. And then this episode, he's so sweet to her, and they're like back with their little chemistry thing.
And I don't know if you guys felt this, but because we weren't always involved with the Nick Jess stuff, and because they were so isolated, I never knew what was happening.
Never.
Every once in a while, a director would say, "You're reacting to this," and I'd go, "Oh, okay."
Thanks, man.
This episode, I should say, our producer picked this episode because she's like, "Oh, this would be a great one because it's really sweet between Schmidt and Cece. He helps her study for her GED. It's a fan favorite for that couple and together, and because Cece is like so sweet, like quiet in it, and is just giving him all these looks. She's like, this is the feedback we've got. This would be a great episode for Max to do." And so I talked to her today and I said, about this episode, what I remember of this episode, the sickest I've ever been in my entire life. I was so ill. And I remember calling Aaron O'Malley and I was like, I can't get out of bed. I had a fever of like 104 or something crazy. And they were like, so sorry, but you have to come to work. And they brought me into work and I had like voice. So I was like, if you watch that episode, I'm barely squeaking out words and I'm just sitting there kind of just like looking at you sweetly, but I'm like not even there. Like I'm on all of these fever medications, just like barely holding it together. And I have these pictures of when we were at the honey roast and I had to sit there and I was sweating with this fever. And Damon just kept like rubbing my back because he could see that I was so sick. So all the loving looks from Cece to Schmidt in this episode is really just me on death's door.
I actually do. I don't remember you being sick at all, but I do remember the honey roast really well.
Yeah, it was a weird. We shot it at night. Do you remember that? It was like at night. It was like it was so weird.
It was like that, and True American, and there was one other episode, but I can't remember exactly how to articulate what was happening. We were like in a tent, but. The honey roast and True American were two things that we shot where collectively we all were like, what is this? And I remember there were multiple writers, if not maybe even Liz, on set, and they were sort of just like telling us what to say.
Yeah, they were trying to make the honey roast work. They were trying to figure it out.
It's the same thing with True American, where Jesse Peretz would be like, now do this or do that. And we'd be like, all right, man, I guess I'll just jump from one thing to another.
No,
like,
I remember a moment with the honey roast. Once we wrapped on that scene, I remember either talking to Liz or somebody going, what? Like, is this going to work out? And they're like, yeah, we're going to figure it out. We're going to piece it together.
Well, that's sort of like the craziness and the beauty of the show is that we would sit there in those type of moments and go, I have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
We would be at the place where they're literally just telling us to say things or giving us jokes, and you're like, all right, and all of us are losing our mind, and none of us are like, in our right mind to ask any more questions. And then they would cut it together, and they've become sort of these iconic pieces of the show. And you go, and much later you go, oh, okay, that's cool. I was wrong. I didn't know what we were doing. This seemed crazy. It was really funny.
It's funny because that's exactly, I feel like, why the honey roast worked so well, because we were all feeling that. You, Damon, and I sitting there being like, what is going on? But that is also what was happening in the honey roast, is what the heck is going on? And, Jake getting to play high and, Zoe getting to play drunk. It was just a perfect, sloppy, weird, funny mess, and they made it work.
Now, let's rewind a second. Let's just go back. Let's just go back to Nick and Jess not wanting to tell anybody about
they didn't want to hijack the moment because they found out that Lamorne, that Winston's got this great news.
He's in the police academy, which I think is important because and I hate to say it to you guys like this, but as Variety's top 100 characters of the century, this was the beginning, making him a police officer who shouldn't have been a police officer. And I think this was the inception of it. Once he got into the police academy, because the rest is Winston is the biggest idiot that you could possibly that should not be allowed to have a gun. And I look back on stuff like this and I go, like, in the moment when you're filming it, you're like, it might not work. I don't know what the hell this thing is. But the level of adding on ridiculous after ridiculous after ridiculous, you look at it after the fact and you go, like you just said, Max, and you go, oh yeah, all right, I guess it worked. I was wrong.
It was a smart move. It reminded me of like Ghostbusters or Stripes, where you go, okay, well, we got Bill Murray and we got Dan. Like, what's the thing that we believe them as the least? You're like, yes, the ghost scientists and and like members of our armed forces.
Winnie the Bish is a LAPD cop.
Yeah, shouldn't have never happened in real life. Now, Nick and Jess, where are we right now? Hannah.
They're falling apart. They're falling apart, but they're pretending that they can hold it together for one day. She does what you do. You call your mom, sobbing, and Nick Miller does what Nick Miller does. He goes and talks to Tran.
That's one of the funniest relationships I've ever seen. R.I.P.
I know.
Mr. Ralph. Yeah. Yep. That's one of the funniest relationships I've ever seen. Like, if you could think of any, like, relationships that happen in television, Max, you watch a lot of TV, you're in a lot of TV. The Nick and Tran, the man doesn't say a word ever, but it's so funny. It's such a funny, iconic duo.
And I feel like didn't Jake sort of request that storyline?
Yeah.
He
And
loved
then
it
they
so
just
much.
cast the
Genuinely loved
perfect
it.
Actor.
Yes. Could you imagine?
Can you,
I'm on
by
this
the way,
show
can
for
you imagine
seasons.
being Ralph, like showing
Yeah.
up and going, by the way, we're all going, oh, this is Tran and he's this funny kid he doesn't talk about it. What about from his perspective? Maybe it was Jake.
Also, could I get a line? Could I get one line? I've been on this show for so long. Could I get a
He
speaking
wants a
part?
line, not with that guy. He's going, I got to get into a bathtub with that guy.
Hold him like a baby.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And this is when we get into the honey roast business. Nick goes back home. He tells Winston he needs to dream big. What do you want? He says he wants a honey roast. Nobody knows what the hell that is. It's like,
Is it, by the way, a thing? Like, I genuinely don't know.
I've seen what I have seen is the complimentary rap battles.
Oh, okay.
Where all they do is say nice shit.
That's cool. I'd watch that.
Is it
that's
like
pretty
for
good.
kids or like adults just
it's
complimenting
adults.
each other? Oh,
It's adult, but they're in like a real rap battle. Like, it's like goons around, but all they're doing is saying nice stuff about their opponent. Like,
I think it's quite nice.
it's quite nice.
very lovely.
It is quite nice. Where are we, Hannah? Back at the bar. This is this right here, Max, is we think about it in real time. We're like, oh, this is she's a model, etc. But upon further review, watching this episode, I'm like, man, Cece is stupid.
What is she? She really did not get her life together. That's
I was
true.
like, yo, they wrote her to be such an idiot. And no knock on people who didn't graduate high school. That's not what it's about. It's about,
Be
the fact
careful.
that you
They'll
didn't-
come after you, Lamorne.
I know. I know.
Careful.
If they know how to log on, yes. They
Not
will.
having your GED is one thing.
That's fine.
Not
That's
knowing
fine.
that Perth is in Australia is a different thing.
I'm like, oh boy.
She needs help.
Yeah. What do you remember about this particular back and forth between you guys? Because again, you break up, you get back together, all that stuff, and now it seems like now you're helping her out a lot on this quest to become better. What do you remember about the writing of this and the
It's
filming
hard
of
to
this?
sort of like, again, I do remember a little bit of, I guess, the Cece Schmidt arc. It's hard to know exactly. I was a little surprised this was season 3, and then I got confused. And then Damon was there. I swore Damon came in season 4.
Nope.
I couldn't have
Maybe
been.
both.
I mean, I was so thrown off. I was like, the whole episode. I go, wait, no, Damon was season 4.
So you don't remember anything.
No,
No, I mean, I think most of us who are on the show, it's only because we're rewatching week to week, but I have not watched the show since it, like when it aired.
Yeah.
And so you forget huge chunks of things that have happened. Again, I only remember this episode because I've never been that ill in my life. And I can see it in my eyes there. And I will say, I've said this many times before, but I've said that probably the most generous scene partner and friend is you, Max. And I do know on the day that I probably was like, I'm very sick and I can't talk and I have a fever 104. And you would always just be like, yeah, okay, I got it. I got you. And so I can see that dynamic because I can see that I'm like sweating and sick and should not have been there. And any other job you can call in sick to work as an actor, that usually doesn't happen. And there's a sweetness there, but I think it was also just part of our friendship because you're like, this woman should be in the hospital.
well,
But okay.
it's a kind thing to say. You had to deal with me the entire time, which is not, I mean, as wonderful as a scene partner as I am, you know, I can be challenging at times.
Well, I would say, especially because you're saying all these nice things about Max that he's loving in those moments when you're sick. When I hurt my thumb getting off that couch, he wasn't very nice to me. When I had the bubble guts and I had to go to the bathroom, Max wasn't very nice to me. Wasn't nice to me at all.
Well, we were never nice to each other. The boys were never nice to each other.
No.
That's true.
We got no love for each other, no respect. In fact, what I do remember the most is whenever I'm spiraling, doing a bit, and saying things that could potentially end my career, I just see Max going, keep going. Or Max will whisper a really messed up joke to me. You know, man, you should really say this. I'd be like,
Hannah,
okay.
we were doing that, the Sexiest Man Alive interview, which, and Lamorne was on one. He was just
This is when you were just nominated too, right? For the Emmy? You were nominated at that point.
Lamorne was on one, and he would answer a question and then continue answering the question, and you would hear people who were, you know, in the room go, "Oh no." And I kept going, guys, it's totally fine. You know what, Lamorne, why don't you just take that again? And then he would go again, and we get worse and worse and worse. I got, stop. You know what? Everything's fine. Lamorne, one more time. Just like take it from the top, speak from the heart. And it just never got better.
What's crazy is I know exactly what you're talking about because so many people sent me that interview and basically were like, oh my God, like light bulb moment. They weren't acting on the show.
Well, there's some footage on the floor, man.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it. I believe it.
But it is really strange, you know, like not knowing. I swore Damon came in. If you would put a gun to my head and said, when did Damon come back to the show, I would say season 4. I was so shocked. So that would have meant that when did Merritt Weaver come in? Beginning of season 3?
2.
That was the end of 2?
It was 2. That was like the 2 was like got a bit right. Am I right with Merritt Weaver?
The end of 2?
Joelle, tell me, am I right?
I think it was the end of 2.
End of 2.
Man, oh man, I'm off
Taylor
a
Swift.
full year on this show. But
yeah, the recovery of Schmidt from that storyline was like the Everest that this show I felt like had
tricky.
to climb.
It was real tricky. We I really liked what the writers had done. I liked it, and I was with it. And I guess not everybody was. But then so they sort of played me back into the fold after that relationship that I guess didn't play as well as we wanted it to.
Yeah.
Is that right to say?
Well,
That's
it
how
was
we
like
remember
the dating two people and I don't have to choose, I think is what then like, you know, you were like such a hero on the show and everybody loved Schmidt. It's a pretty unlovable thing. And that was what they had to kind of like figure out.
I really bought into the idea that he was just like, I love both of them so much.
I will say what was hysterical for me is that when those episodes were airing and, you know, everybody was so in love with the show and people would stop me, right? And be like, you have to take him back. And I was like, first of all, I don't write this show. So I don't know if you know how this works, but like, this is not real and I don't write this show. But none of it was ever, even people in like the delirious nature of like, this feels so real to me, was like, what a piece of shit. Cheating on these two characters. It was, they loved you so much. I feel like Schmidt just would have been forgiven anything. It was amazing to experience people like coming up and like stopping me and being like, you have to make this happen. And I was like, I have no control.
I thought that was really moved by the writers.
But I do vaguely remember it was either this scene, this episode, or like, it might have even been this episode, but some of the scenes where you were at the bar and they'd have my character come in and it was just the two of us and the aftermath of that. And I remember being like, man, I got to really be careful with these scenes because I can't go. I don't have the same freedoms I once had when we started the show because I'm working. I guess from a deficit, um, from what we were trying to like dig ourselves out of.
You know what I compare it to? You became LeBron in Miami. You became the villain. It was like, how does LeBron get back into the good graces of people? Like, he has to pay a lot of makeup.
But you bring up something interesting. It was really cool that like I think in a sense it worked out in a really interesting way because they had to sort of figure out what to do with me at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And how to move forward. And at the same time, they were like, oh my God, we just found Winston. Like they really tapped into your character. And then there was a real shift in that moment where it was like, oh man, we can give all the punchline, all the fun stuff that we used to give to Schmidt, all to then they found you and like ran with you. And it was that to me is why a show really lasts for a long time, is because you can, when you figure out everybody, you can sort of then go nuts and like you can take breaks from characters and really like allow other characters to do their thing and play big storylines out with them. And it was interesting how that happened.
Oh yeah.
I will say in this episode what I liked, because yes, it was one very sweet and very gentle, the Schmidt Cece stuff. I also was just whispering, so it made it seem even more gentle the entire episode. But my favorite bit, because I was like, oh, there it is. That's the best part always, is when at the end of the episode, Max, you come in and Schmidt, he's like processing the breakup because they find out about the breakup at the end. And he's just like, I don't care. Like, you're an idiot. Figure your life out, Cece. And I was like, oh, that's the best. That's like why those two characters work, is when those weird Schmidt moments happen and they kind of let you kind of like do your thing that you do so well.
Those were the turns on New Girl that I love the most, where he like comes in, because I did watch the episode, where he would come in and have like a really nice, I mean, it's just a great piece of dialogue which was not improvised, which was something like, it makes me so angry or something like that I care more about your future than you care about something like that, or your success. And it was a really it was a nice moment, especially in the recovery of everything that we were sort of trying to work backwards from. And then for you guys to then reveal that Jake and Zoe broke up, and for me to turn on you immediately. Like, that's the show.
Yeah, it's the best. Those moments are the best.
Hey, let's go to a quick break. And when we come back, I know we already talked about this a little bit, but I do want to, speak a little bit about this honey roast in a little bit more detail, and then we can keep the ball rolling. Hey, folks, we'll be right back. And we're back. Jake Johnson is a piece of shit. So let's dive in to this honey roast. What do you mean, Max?
I feel like this is like a honey roast of an episode we're doing right here. All kinds of things. It's very sweet. It's very Canadian.
One of my favorite parts about this episode is when the honey roast does start, and I could tell you it's got all I do is say, did somebody say Winston? Every time I watch this episode or have seen this clip, I get upset with myself because when I read something or I visualize something, I start to laugh, and then it's hard. And Max, I'm sure you've seen this before when we'll do bits, and I can't stop laughing at the bit, and I can never officially get it out properly the way the joke was. Like, if I did the joke properly, it would land so much more, but I'm laughing so much that I can't do it.
I totally get it. And it's such a testament to the writing on that show and how good it was. Mm-hmm. Everyone, like, you would get lines and moments where you go, shit, this is really funny.
Yeah.
And you'd have to go, if I get excited about it or push it too hard, I'm going to take away from what's there. Mm-hmm. I gotta just allow it to happen, but I'm also too excited about what's about to happen.
Yes. And when that door opens, I just remember watching it. Says did somebody say Winston? Every time I watch it, I go, I had better takes. I just remember it's just one line. I just remember going like, I kept laughing or adding to it, and it wasn't working. And I was like, just say the freaking line. And I finally did it. I was like, oh, that was weak, but they used it. Whatever. So now we're into this honey roast situation. You know what I love most about it is that on this show, we'll take something very like normal, like make the man a throne, and then, but what does that throne look like when Nick makes it? Right? They use the personal traits of a character to add something to it. Every time I watch this or see a meme of it, I look at how stupid that thing looks. I go like, oh, yeah, this is also a part of the writing. Like they make this cool shit that people talk about out of just simply by saying. Because if they would have said Schmidt's gonna make it, it would look completely different. It'd be leather. It would be symmetrical. It would be clean. All these things, but they're like, no, Nick makes it, and it looks like something you shouldn't be sitting on.
Was Game of Thrones out at the time?
I believe.
That's so funny. That was the thought I had too. I was like, it feels like this whole thing is inspired by Game of Thrones.
I think so.
Thrones.
I could be wrong. I think so. But
it must have been. I feel like Game of Thrones has been on forever.
I thought there was a Game of Thrones reference in this, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Max, have you ever been to
Game of Thrones?
Or have done like some sort of
Have you been on Game of Thrones?
I feel like you have been to this set at least. You know everybody in this town. I feel like you did a set visit.
I do. I know a lot of actors that actually went out to Spain to like go on set and walk around.
They don't want me. They don't want my kind up there. No time for bits on the set of games.
But yeah, like the writing of them doing, saying nice and cool and cute. I remember about that is that I genuinely, even though it was confusing and we were in those moments, I genuinely thought it was funny. Even though I was like, I don't know where we are, all the nice stuff, all of our reactions to it. I thought that was all pretty damn solid.
It was so weird because like Jake is, playing high and Zoe is like a drunk cat. And the whole thing was so all over the place. And I just remember we shot it really out of sequence. And I think it was because I was that sick. And Erin's like, we got to get out of here. She's going to go to the hospital. And so they were shooting like our reactions. And then like that moment at the end holding hands, we did that like first. We did all this stuff like completely out of order. Mm-hmm. It felt a very true American-ish where you're like, what's going on? Why are we doing it like this? Nobody's fully like in their character. Really, everybody's playing like weird versions of themselves. But man, on a rewatch, it was hysterical.
Yeah, Zoe was dressed up like a cat.
Like Ferguson, because that's what Winnie wanted.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Let's put that together. But she was dressed up like a cat and doing stand-up. And we were just sitting there going, what's happening? and then Lamorne walked in a tuxedo, and I was like, I'm on drugs for real. Doing bits. Jake's got his sunglasses on. I'm pretending he's on like pain meds or something. I was like, I can't. This is too much. I'm on
Schmitty's Little Helpers.
Schmitty's Little Helpers. Now. And then the honey roast is postponed to the next day.
Well, it turns, right? It turns because Jess gets so pissed, she turns it into a real roast. And then she starts trying to say mean things.
Yeah.
In a Jess way.
Head. Schmidt, you have a big head. It was like, that's it. All right, cool, man. You got me. But yeah, later that night, Jess is watching Dirty Dancing in the living room and she's crying. Now, honestly, if you just played a scene from Dirty Dancing and then you just played a scene from Ghosts, I would like just
one Ghost. It's a very important Ghost.
Well, Ghosts, it was also a great show on CBS. Yeah. But if you played a scene, I would be like, I'd lose if there was Max, you've been on Jeopardy. If you played a snippet of that,
Max would know the difference between Dirty Dancing and Ghost.
Just one scene, would you?
Why? Because Swayze?
It's Swayze. It's romantic, and there's like the same era, so the film grain looks the same.
You've said so many confusing things in my life.
I wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
This is right up there. What
No,
are you
no, if
talking
you put Whoopi Goldberg in there, then I'd be like, oh, that's Ghost. But
Yeah.
if you didn't, I'd be like, what movie? Because I get the actors.
One of them takes
confused
place
and
at a
everything.
camp, and the other takes place in New York City.
One is in a camp.
Oh God. Have you seen
Yes,
Dirty Dancing?
takes place at a camp.
Oh, Dirty. No, I would get Dirty Dancing and Roadhouse confused. Oh, for sure.
Okay.
I'd be like, oh.
This is this is.
I would be.
It's
I'm just telling
disappointing.
you. I'm just telling you. You got to announce it. Like, this is Dirty Dancing. Then I'd be like, I get it. I understand.
You
Also,
are very
haven't-
Mick Miller in this situation.
Also,
Yeah.
haven't seen any of these movies.
For sure. It shows.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen
Ottawa,
it.
Swayze brings it, man.
Yeah.
The greatest.
Now, the Roadhouse remake was great. I like that movie a lot.
I like that movie. I like it. They got
I
that
like
Conor McGregor in there. He could
Hell
fight.
yeah, man. That was cool as hell. Billy Magnuson, let's go.
Because he'll punch somebody.
We end with them both singing Hungry Eyes, which is a scene from Ghost. We'll be right back.
Stop.
And we are back. Hannah, let's mess around a little bit. That's not something weird that we do, Max. It's just
A little weird.
I know the premise. I'm aware of the premise.
We put it out there that you were coming on this show, and we got, I don't even know, 100 to 200, and it was insane questions just for you. So we picked a few to ask from the fans. So let's start with Melissa. She said, what was the best part of playing Schmidt and what was the hardest? You absolutely killed it. You had me laughing every single episode, even rewatching it. Best part of playing Schmidt.
I don't feel comfortable.
what's that?
Doesn't feel comfortable. It's a pass, Melissa. He said pass.
The most difficult for sure was memorizing a lot of the dialogue, because there were some real chunks, and having to do that day of a lot of the times was sometimes challenging, as you guys would witness.
The one that
yeah.
I still think about to this day is when they had you name all of Romney's kids.
I know.
That one.
By the way, I did no research on that, and I was like, I can't believe he has all those kids. And they were like, we just made those names up. And I went, I go, I still could have just said anything. I like memorized it in order and did a whole. It was torture. But memorizing some of those things was challenging. Also, you know what the worst part of playing Schmidt was the choreography. Hannah, you probably remember her name. Do you remember the choreographer who came in who choreographed the Bollywood dance?
No, but I should. I would just like to say very quickly is that I think the original idea, if this makes you feel any better, is that I was supposed to join in or be part of it. And then they saw my skill level, which is somehow worse than Jake Johnson's.
Oh,
so
boy.
they brought me in on a Saturday to that rehearsal to watch you guys. And I just sat in a chair and they were like, we're done.
Yes,
and I'm like,
I remember
I'm worse than
you
him.
were filming it. You filmed it, and you filmed me having a temper tantrum.
I do have it. I have that video.
I'm so bad with choreography, and they move so fast, and there's an expectation that I don't know. I always feel like they're looking at me like, "How are you not getting this?" And it makes me think. And the premise of that dance was that Schmidt was supposed to be very good at it, and that he had really worked hard on it. And I was having a lot of trouble with it, and I was very upset.
Well, you wanted to be great at it. It ended up being amazing. If you're comfortable, I will show part of this clip.
I ran into that woman. She wonderful choreographer. I ran into her outside of the Amundsen Theater, and I was taking my kids to see. I was taking my daughter to see Evan Hansen with two of her friends. And I ran into her, and she ran up and she said hi, and she couldn't have been like more lovely and excited to see me. And I was like, I need to take this moment and apologize to you deeply because I was challenged that week, and if I took it out on you at all, I really sincerely apologize. And she was like, no, 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 no. And I was like, I don't totally buy it.
Honestly, she probably saw that your intention underneath it all was that you just wanted it. You wanted to be great at it.
Well,
So
that's the thing.
you weren't frustrated at her.
Well, that's the thing. People ask all the time, about the characters on the show. And I've always said this. I said, Max Greenfield is one of the greatest actors, period. Because you can't, because I'm there in real time. I'm looking at the dialogue that he has to say. I'm looking at the song and dance that he has to do while saying it. And I'm looking at his level of commitment, even though sometimes it's so crazy what he has to say. The lists of things, the words that I'm quite sure you had to look up or just didn't bother looking up, that you just committed. Committed so hard to it. I remember there was a time when you couldn't there was a specific tongue twister you had to say. And I just remember you going, like, you kept screwing up with a line, and then you said to yourself, damn it, Max.
Oh, yeah.
The damn it, Max happened a lot.
I just was in tears. I was like, man, God, I don't want to be him. I don't want to be right here. They give
you a different mountain to climb than the rest of us. That's true.
Jake would make fun of me when it was happening. And you go, oh, Max is going brain dead again. Here we go.
I remember that too.
Oh my gosh. You
do short circuit after a certain point. When you've said something, it starts to lose its meaning, like anything. It becomes nonsensical.
Oh, 100%. You mentioned your daughter a little bit ago. Has she watched New Girl yet? Will you let her watch New Girl?
You know what I find? She like tapped into it for a minute. She's 15. She's a freshman in high school. She tapped into it for a minute and was like, okay. And a lot of those kids, like, they know about it, but it's not their thing. It's not like their show.
Right.
It isn't until later. I find that the kids that go crazy, where they where they really have, where it really connects with them, is when they go to college.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because they're living on their own. They have roommates. They're in a dorm, and it's probably co-ed or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, there's a moment where, like, they have a weekend, they're not doing anything, or they're hungover, or they get stoned, and they watch the show, and they watch all 140 episodes of it, and they go, I'll never be the same.
That's so funny. I remember the first time someone said that to me. They're like, I rewatched New Girl. And I was like, oh, they're like, this weekend. And I'm like, you watched it in like one sitting?
Yeah. My daughter does club volleyball. And so I'll have to drive to all these tournaments, right? And so she has her team, and there's other club teams there, and there's other ages sometimes there, and never, it's like a bunch of high school kids. And, every once in a while, more so you get like moms that'll come up to you and say stuff. But colleges have club teams too. And we went to one that was like a bunch of colleges teams were there, and they, I think, stopped the tournament. And had they were just like, oh my God. And like I had to take like 1,000 pictures that day. And they were like, the other parents on the teams were like, does this usually happen? And I go, if the college kids weren't here, it would not have happened.
Dude, that is, do you know what? I can attest to that. That is, I didn't realize how much I just thought, adult kids or adult people in their 20s, maybe mid 20s, early 30s were vibing to the show. A buddy of mine took me to my first ever UCLA basketball game. And, they show the people on the screen that are there. They showed my boy who was next to me. I was sitting with Norman Powell and I was sitting with Jaleel White, UCLA alums. And they showed them on the screen. People go crazy. And as the camera's moving back, they see me. And you can hear a murmur in the crowd. They go to Jessica Alba. They go to somebody else who was there. And the camera guy comes back up to me. He has no idea who I am. And he goes, they want me to put the camera on you too. And I was like, all right. And the people start screaming Winnie the Bish. I was like, yo, I'd never experienced that before in my life.
Yeah, man, it's intense.
Yeah. That question came from Chessa, by the way. Hannah, you got another question?
Yeah. So this one's from Abby. She says, where do you still find Schmidt in your day-to-day? How has the character stayed with you past filming the show? Any Schmidtisms that have popped up in your day-to-day?
Yeah, I mean, always. I think a little bit. I find that like whenever I have to do a bit, or if I have to, anytime somebody wants me to be funny, and you go, okay. And we've done now 7 seasons in the neighborhood, and we've gone through a couple showrunners and like a lot of different writers on that show. And then there's just stuff that you'll get and you'll go, I know how to do this. It's the same way I did it when I was doing it on A New Girl. And you just do it. I'm doing a thing right now, an animated show. It's not out yet, but the writing is so good, and it's so funny, and it's very quick. And I find myself doing a lot of, I'm like, oof. I mean, I guess this is just where I go when it's this type of rhythm and this type of stuff. And I was like, I guess I can't help it.
Is that the show, your animated show? Is that the show you ditched my show for? The show that was supposed to be me and you, and then you ditched it, and then now you're doing another animated show?
No.
Oh, it's me and Max are supposed to do a show. Me and Max.
I feel like you got a personal question list that you just like are also reading during this.
I was hurt. I was looking forward to it, and Max was like, "Lamorne, sorry, bro.
You're just trying to have shows with each of these cast members one-on-one. We got our show doing this. You and Max going to go do a cartoon together.
I'm trying to work with everybody. Listen, I tell people all the time, Max, I'm not sure if you remember saying this to me. You said, I think it was maybe the finale. You said, no matter what you go on to do, this is rare. Like we got really lucky to be with a cast like this, a group of people like this. Everybody's having fun, and to go this long, you're like, this is rare. So don't get used to don't get used to that. And I took that to heart because, and I've worked with some pretty good casts and great casts, and like a lot of people that I'm still in contact with, but nothing has been like this show, where I'm like, oh my God, if I could just work with these people again. Like that would be, I feel like I would give 10 times better performances because I feel so comfortable with you guys. And all you do is set me up for stuff, and all we do is fuck around and do bits. And I go, my God, that's my wheelhouse. Can somebody write something like this, please?
I know it, because you've got to find, like, you go to these new sets and you got to settle in, and you're nervous, and it's a different rhythm, and you got to find the rhythm, and you got to find the rhythm of the other actors. And so, and there was also something so, as intense as that show was, there was such a bonding experience that happened because of it.
Oh, yeah.
Again, like, I don't think I remember so much of what we shot on that show because at some point we forgot that we were shooting a show.
Right.
Like, it was so secondary to, trying to make each other laugh.
There's a moment, I feel like, I think it's in this episode where it's Lamorne and Damon are sitting on the couch, right? And then as Lamorne, whatever lines you're saying, you keep like tapping Damon, and you just hear Damon go like, stop touching me. And then you do it again, and he goes, stop touching me. Like, and then you put like your hand on his leg, and he's like, get off me. And I'm like, none of that was in the script. That was just you guys doing your thing, and you realized that touching it bugged him. He wasn't going to stop saying it, and it was in the show. It was in the show, and it's so funny.
That's the thing that I find that was so confusing and has probably ruined me as a professional. In that the things that we would do just to make each other laugh, or deep into take, 11 or 12, stuff that you were like, I'm only doing this now so we can move on because I know we have it, and like I need, rather than saying, hey, because you can't say like, hey, we got it, guys. So you do something completely insane to let them know, like, okay, we've lost them, let's move on.
You know what's so funny, Max, is that
show.
That's so funny. As we talked about this, Lamorne was like a couple episodes ago. There's like a dance. The three of you guys are in the bathroom, right? And you could tell, you could just, if you know the show, you're watching it, and I'm like, oh God, this is like take 12 for these guys. And you and Jake do like a dumb dance, and Lamorne's not doing it. And you hear Jake just go, just do the dance, man. And then Lamorne does it. And then that's the end of the scene. And I'm like, that was Jake getting so mad, being like, can we just do it? Because that's what they want. And if we do the thing, we can fucking move on. And it was so clearly Jake's voice yelling at Lamorne so you guys could get out of the scene.
When Justin came into the neighborhood last week, I think on day 2, we realized that, oh wow, on this set, gosh, the sun is really bright. It's not in anything. It's not in any script. No one's written it. We're not outside. We're on a soundstage. But gosh almighty. Oh, right. And so we're rehearsing scenes because we don't shoot them until tape day. So in every rehearsal, he would come in and we'd be like, hey man, gosh, I'm so sorry. Can't see. And the director, who by the way, this guy Victor Gonzalez, who's one of my favorite directors, and he's done so many episodes of the show, and had never seen me behave like this ever. goes, hey man, are your eyes okay? What's going on? And I go, no man, it's really bright out. He goes, what are you talking about? I go, are you not seeing that? I go, it's really like, because we're playing this down by the beach, and we're just playing the sun. And he goes, yeah, you should stop that.
This is why they had to bring on Trent O'Donnell. I would just like to say there was only one person who would go like, I can hang with this whole situation and laugh along with the never-ending bits.
Okay, so the last question is coming from Megan. What was it like to shift your character from douchebag to neurotic sweetheart? How did you make that work so seamlessly? It's such an interesting transition, and it happens without us fully realizing it. Maybe because for a while it all hinged on Schmidt's love for Cece. Thanks to everyone for your amazing work that has made me laugh daily for years. Megan.
Yeah, I think that was a testament to Hannah. I think that's the reason. Hannah was so good on the show, and they established her character so early and our relationship so early, and they were like, I don't think we can get away from this. And so I don't think any of us had there was no choice. We spent 2 episodes, 3 episodes in, like womanizer douchebag guy. And then by the way, they also realized, like, I don't think this guy gets girls in real life. And I just think it was all just, felt like it really worked early on. Like a lot of the things that I think they did on the show. And they just wrote to it, and it never stopped working.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. You're just doing your job, and guess what? The writers, the editors, they put it together to protect you. Yeah, that's what it is. If he were a douchebag for a very, very long time, I think we would have done maybe a season.
Yeah, it's funny.
Maybe
That's
2.
that 4th episode called Cece Crashes, where they turn and they do a big turn for Schmidt's character. That's the one where I'll never forget. They were brought in a crane for like the hand holding moment in the bed, which was like the end of that episode. And that to me was like, it was such a huge gift for me because now I had something to do and someone to like be with on the show. And it gave, her story and all sorts of stuff. And then it showed this full other side that hadn't existed for 3 episodes with Schmidt. And then, and then it hit, and then everybody liked it, and they kept writing it for us. And it was always so fun and wonderful and weird and very different than being with the boys.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I could imagine. I was waiting for love scenes between me and Max. Never happened. I will say they played the love scenes between Max and Jake. They did it with Max and Hannah. Max, I need to be on the neighborhood, my friend.
We tried to get you on. You were insulted.
Can I just say what this asshole did?
First of all, let me tell you something. I didn't do anything. They offered you a job. I didn't think about it. I didn't think twice about it, and then you got all offended. You know, by the way, you know how many people I've gotten on the show? Nobody listens to me.
Can I say?
They offered Lamorne a job, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." Cedric came down, and he goes like this: "Hey, man, we offered Lamorne a role," and I go, "Oh, cool. You want me to call him?" And he goes, "Yeah. You should hit him up. I was like, "Okay, cool, great."
That's it.
Like,
That's how it went.
Radio silence.
No, let me tell you. Hannah, did I ever tell you the story?
No, I mean, because you've done everyone's show. You've done Damon's, you've done Utkarsh's. I see you show up for everybody all the time. I did not know this story.
Well, I got the email from my agents from like, oh my God, they want you to do an episode of The Neighborhood. I said, oh, sweet, tell them I'll do it. And I said, I'm in. I didn't even look at it. I was like, I'll look at it later, but I'm going to do it. And then my manager was like, question, did you read it? And I was like, I mean, I'm going to. Like, they do a table read, they do all that stuff. You know, I know how this works. And he's like, just read it. I just remember reading it. And the character was a crackhead who they like chase him. I remember one that scene was like they chase him out of the house. And then he look up, he's on the roof. I said, yo. I thought they were, I knew in that moment, I was like, oh, they're fucking with me. And so I remember Max.
Really, so to Cedric's credit, there was like a running joke on the show about a guy named Crackhead Victor. Okay, for real. And I think when Cedric had more ownership of sort of like what the storylines were, he said, I don't want to just like make this a punchline anymore. I want to give this guy a backstory. I want you to like know what, like who he is and who this character is. And it was an attempt to really like humanize what was a joke on the show. And I thought they did a pretty good job with it. But there was one scene where he's running around and like he gets super speed and he like jumps over a car and on the roof and stuff. And in the rehearsals where I didn't want to be the one chasing him or like move too fast. I was just like, I remember there's a video of me like holding a coffee going, Peter, get back here. I go, this is not great.
Oh man.
Maybe I don't let this video out.
You know, I will say that's how the episode, it gets to the point where you're like, oh, this dude's a veteran, you know, all this stuff, you know, he's really, you know, a great guy, but I couldn't eliminate the jumping over a car thing.
It was a crazy.
I didn't get a video. I did get a call from Max, and it was a video or FaceTime from Max and Cedric going, "Look, man, we respect you as an actor. We just try to give you something to like sink your teeth into."
I told him, I was like, Lamorne's pissed, and he was like, "What do you mean, man?" And I was like, "Yeah, he's not happy." He's like, "Why did I came out and fucking you offer me a crackhead?"
Oh man, but I actually still regret not doing it because I thought it would have been fun. Anyway,
it was a good time.
Max,
man, this has been like the honey roast of Max Greenfield, y'all.
Yeah, dude, you could have been anywhere in the world today, but you chose to be here with us, my friend. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I love to be in here.
You are being an absentee father in this moment just for us. And for that, we appreciate you.
My son did pop his head in here and because he's not feeling too good. He stayed home from school. And I was in the middle of a story and he looked at me and he was like, oh, fuck.
Daddy's working. We love you, Max. Thank you for coming on the show. The fans clearly love you. There's a billion questions for you. So it's so crazy to see how this show, it's funny. You were just saying with your daughter, saying she's 14 right? And I'm like,
50.
I will never forget meeting you for the first time. And she was months old.
I know it.
That's how long we've been in each other's lives. That is so wild. Like Lily is the marker of the beginning. Wild.
Crazy.
Wild that you did all of this with an infant. Also wild. You are amazing. We love you. We will see you hopefully again soon.
Thank you, folks, for listening. Be sure to follow us on IG at The Mess Around Pod. Send your questions. Send more questions for Max, because Max has already agreed to do this show 5 times in a row. So thank you for that, Max. The Mess Around Pod at gmail.com. We'll be back next week with episode 322, Dance.
That was The Mess Around, an iHeartMedia production.
Our executive producer is Joel Monique. Our senior producer is Abu Zafar. Bei Wang provided engineering and editing services.
Additional production from Daniel Goodman, Wendy Heisler, and Kyle Chevron. Our theme song was written and composed by Ronald Jukebox Jackson.
Catch you next time.
Bye.